You're listening to episode number 25 of the Wellness Real Estate Podcast. And today you're going to learn why I love podcasting and how you can grow your real estate business through podcasting. We have real estate podcasting expert Scott Patron, who has helped real estate agents learn how they can grow their network, expand their brand, and educate an audience all through podcasting. So if you're curious to learn new forward-thinking ways on how you can differentiate yourself and share more about your community with a larger audience, completely free, you're going to want to listen to today's episode. Welcome to the Real Estate Marketing Podcast, where we explore a unique strategy no one is talking about that will enable you to engage more people with authentic conversations about your business more often. And it's called Wellness Real Estate. Not sure what that is or how it can help you as an agent? Well, that's what this podcast is all about. In fact, Wellness Real Estate is growing so rapidly that it is projected to be nearly $870 billion by 2027. I'm Sheila Alston, and I'm your host. I'm also the founder of Healthy Home Media, where I help agents all over the country leverage this new trend in the industry to spark new conversations that will get people to listen to you and notice your brand. So if you're tired of spinning your wheels without any leads or sales to show for it, then stay tuned. I guarantee this podcast is not like any you've heard before. Welcome to the Wellness Real Estate Podcast. Thank you for being here, Scott. I'm so excited that you're on the podcast today.
Thank you, Sheila. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, so I'm super excited because I want to learn all about podcasting. You know, I mean, when I started this podcast, I feel like I didn't know anything, but I just wanted to have something that I could say I was doing that would kind of position me as an expert so that I could stand out in the marketplace. So I'm super excited to have you here because I found you through your Udemy course. And so I know you have a lot to share on why should an agent have a podcast?
I think you hit one of the major reasons, and that is standing out from the crowd and being an expert. And, so if you are a real estate agent and you have an expertise, that's awesome. If you're a real estate agent and you're sort of more general, that's still fine, right? Because you know your area, right? Every real estate agent is an expert. They're either an expert in their area or they're an expert in some quirk of their area or some niche that they've decided that they want to focus in on, right? And one of the beauties of podcasting, because people will tell you, oh, YouTube videos, and I'm not saying don't, and blogging, and I'm not saying don't, and have a website, and I'm not saying don't, or tweet, and I'm not saying don't, but all of those things require 100% of your attention. Like nobody will tell you it's a good idea to be driving down the highway tweeting, or right, or to be washing if you have a baby, do the baby bath while you're watching a video from YouTube on your iPad, because it'll end up in the wash with the baby, right? So, but podcasting is you take these little buds, stick it in your ear, and you can cradle the baby, you can feed the baby, you can do yoga, you can mow the lawn, although, have a quiet lawnmower, you can walk the dog, you can drive to and from work. Most people commute about at least 20 minutes to work. So that's one of the reasons why I always say, when people say, how long should they be? I'm like 20 minutes but the true answer is how long your audience wants you to talk, right? Yeah. Like I was talking with an expert in podcasting the other day, and they said, no, like 5 minutes max, right? And of course, there are people in the world that have an attention span of 4 minutes and 59 seconds. But I know people who have 2-hour podcasts and hundreds of thousands of downloads. Wow. So it just depends on, how much demand there is for the information, how hungry people are for the information. And part of it too is how entertaining you are. If you talk in a monotone and really slow all the time, and everybody falls asleep and it's not a meditation podcast, then you have to, work on yourself to improve those things, right? But but really, I think everyone who's a realtor should have a podcast because, and it's not just about talking about my house that I have for sale or my apartment or condo. It's what's happening in the neighborhood, right? Like one of the biggest uses of a podcast for me is networking, because everyone's like, oh, I got to go to like be something. I forget all the letters, the business get-togethers or meetups and stuff. And for me, it's like, well, gee, you have something interesting to say, and I'm really interested in that. So I'm going to invite you on my podcast. And what's that involve, Scott? Well, I'll just send you a link, and then you just talk into your phone or into your computer, and you don't have to do anything else. Okay, and then once they're done, you've got 20 minutes, a half an hour of having interacted with that person. So you're now a friend. And it's like, oh, if you know somebody that needs a house in the downtown area, I've got one. Or, you can start asking them for referrals. You can start asking them, what they need that you can maybe help them with and build that relationship.
I found it to be such a natural icebreaker too, because who doesn't want to promote their small business, or who doesn't want to, talk about themselves? Everybody wants to. So the minute you say, oh my gosh, I love what you're doing, can I have you on my podcast? They're super impressed that you have a podcast, number one.
Yes.
And then number two, they're like, yeah, you want to promote me? So not only do you have a great conversation with them because you're talking about them, they get to showcase their business. But then you do have a friend and they feel like, gosh, you just promoted my business. And not only are you promoting it on your social media and you're promoting it to your audience and promoting it everywhere, now I feel like, reciprocal thing. I need to promote you. So it's kind of an indirect way where all of a sudden you've got all these people that love you and want to promote you also because you're promoting them and you're getting to know your community. It's just really a genius idea. I mean, I can't tell you, I started podcasting from like not knowing anybody. And the minute I started talking about my podcast, everyone's like, yeah. And I said, I have to warn you, I don't know how many people are actually listening to my podcast. But it'll give you some PR to talk about, and everybody loves that. And so
it becomes a third party testimonial is really not the right word, but like if I tell you how great I am, everyone's like, yeah, right, of course you're going to say that. But if you tell everybody how great I am, it's a totally different story, right? So when your guest, we make image quotes, because always someone will say something, oh, that's really good, right? And people love memes and image quotes and that sort of thing. So we'll make between 2 and 5. I say that because my team made 5 for this lady who was a guest on one of our podcasts. And usually it's 2, but she said so many things that we were like, oh, that's great, that's great, that's great. And so then she gets these images and she's going to be like, holy smokes, I've got all these images I can share. And because what's the big problem people have is like, what do I post on Facebook today? Right. And you can post these. And one of the things that people don't realize, if you're careful with your podcast and you make it evergreen, so sometimes you can and sometimes you can't, right? I mean, if you're going to be talking about the house, hopefully it's sold in a month or less. And so it's not evergreen, right? But if you're talking with someone who's, got a business in town, or there's an annual event that they're talking about that they organize and that sort of thing, then these are things that you can schedule to go on to your Facebook and LinkedIn and tweets every couple or 3 or 4 months, right? So all of a sudden, instead of, because we create all this content and then we just like throw it in the garbage, right? Like, well, I posted it once, and it's like someone told everybody there was a rule, you only post once, but
you got to repurpose.
You can repurpose it and you can repost it, because chances are, if you've got, well, let's say you've got 5,000 friends on Facebook, you're really active on it. Well, maybe 100 of them saw it the first time. So if you post it like 3 weeks later, maybe one of that 100 saw it again, but they're not going to remember, or they'll say, oh, it's cute or whatever. And then you got another 99. So creating content and putting it out has always been a problem that people have, is like, oh, I don't have time. But the content that we've created, we can reuse again and again over time, so that in 6 months, you've got so much content, you can't post it all, really.
Right. Well, so what do you think if someone says, okay, I'm a new agent, or I've been an agent, and, I'm intrigued with this podcasting thing because I like the ability to network, but what should I talk about on my podcast? And who should I invite on my podcast? I have no idea. Like, what would you say to them?
Well, I would say the first thing I would say is what geographical area are you going to focus in on?
Mm-hmm.
So if LA, for example, I don't think anyone would want to say I'm going to be a realtor for the entire city.
Mm-hmm.
And, so there's usually like Orange County or some area that I'm going to focus on. That's
Mm-hmm.
where I would start. And then I would say, what's going on? There's always something going on in town, right? Whether it's the spring fair, the summer fair, the fall fair, or a concert that's going on or whatever. And I would just find the people that are organizing those things and say, listen, I'm doing a podcast. I would love to interview you and I always trick them. I tell them it's 15 minutes because I know that once I get them talking, it's going to be half an hour. Yeah. And my personal goal is like 30 minutes is how long we should be on recording for. So, and sometimes you might want to chop stuff out, or you might want to extract smaller pieces, right? Because you could do TikTok video, just take 30 seconds of something they said that was smart, put their picture on it, and you've got a TikTok video. So, so I just tell them it takes 15 minutes. We just, get your calendar out, get my calendar out. And, we want a few minutes before to talk and a few minutes afterwards to talk. So half an hour. And, and then what you're doing is you're getting known in the community, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody kind of knows a realtor, but they don't, unless it's your sister or your brother-in-law or something like that, they don't really know them. Mm-hmm. So your goal as a new realtor is to create as big a network as you can, as fast as you can. Yeah. Which would be, and let's say, for example, that you're focusing on condos, not single family houses. Yeah. Or you're focusing on commercial, not residential. Like wherever you're focusing on, then it's a matter of like, well, what do those people need that I can give them? And so there's it's a barber shop. Here it's a mall, and that sooner or later the mall's going to go for sale. So you go talk to the owner of the mall and say, I just want to interview the people there. And they all talk about how great it is. And so he's got a couple empty spots, and people say, wow, they all said it was great there. So I'm going to, check it out. Right. Whereas before nobody would check it out.
Right. I think the key is to be hyper local. I hear that's what you're saying, right? And maybe name your podcast something really cool that's about your city or your neighborhood or something, so that people can find it.
That's right.
And if you're talking about how great it is to live there or how great it is to do business there, and you're interviewing the business people there, it's giving someone maybe even from out of town that's like thinking, oh, I want to move to this area. They find you on your podcast, and then, you're the realtor that stands out because you're interviewing everybody that's in the neighborhood.
That's right. Yeah. And when you're hyper local, I really think you should have like a Google My Business. I don't know if they changed the name again recently or not, but a Google My Business account or a Google Maps, because people will look at the map, right? And so you can post on those. So basically you do the podcast and it goes on to Apple and Google Podcasts and Spotify and those places. But then you can also take it and embed it, which means put a player on a post, say, today Sheila talks with Joe, who's the local fair organizer about this upcoming summer fair or whatever, right? Yeah. Google loves that stuff. And so now Susie and Henry are going to be moving to the area. She types in, what's going on, and your Google My Business post will pop up because Google loves Google, right? So now they get to listen to you, and there's, this is what's happening. Okay. And you don't hard sell that you're a realtor, but you do always say, hey, this is Sheila, and I'm the realtor in this area. And if you're looking for investment properties or houses or commercial, like whatever it is, you have to spend some time on your elevator pitch, right? Yeah. And then do an elevator pitch for your podcast. And at some point, and then and it's intuitive, right? Like as you're talking, there might be a really good opportunity for you to drop it in the middle. But at the end, when you're closing, hope you enjoyed this show. If there's someone you'd like to know more, some business you'd like me to interview, like email me at here or go here to tell me or tweet or whatever. And then, so you have a call to action. And, if you or somebody who's looking for whatever your niche is, then, make sure they get a hold of me and here's my information, or it's in the description.
And you can have that. I mean, Spotify or Anchor is what I use, and it's totally free. And they post it on everything for you. And it was super easy to get started. My first few podcasts were literally from my phone. I didn't even have a mic or anything. And I just, and the reason why I did it too, instead of videos, I thought, oh my gosh, I could write a script. I'll write a script and then I can just read it. And then I know I won't mess up and it'll be fine. So it just makes it so easy to at least start a podcast from the very beginning.
Yeah, I want to reinforce what you just said about the script. When you're in the beginning and you have like an intro and an extra, right? This is what I want to say in the beginning. This is what I want to say at the end. I always write it down, and then I have it on a piece of paper right beside me, and whether I'm video, or it doesn't matter if I'm video or audio. In the beginning, I'll read it. And then after you've done it like 10 times, you don't need to read it anymore. It just flows off your tongue. But you really need to spend time on those two parts, because that's what's going to get you the leads, right? You always have to keep in mind your purpose of your podcast is for you to create this network of people, this net that's going to bring in the, your ideal customers. And every once in a while, it's good to say, you know what, today we're just going to be talking about this house I'm really excited about, or this commercial property I'm really excited about. If you want to know more or see it, blah, 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 blah. And go here to see pictures, go to my Instagram to see pictures of it, or whatever the call to action is.
And what a cool thing for your sellers too, to say, hey, not only am I going to put it on the MLS, but let's do a podcast and I can interview you and you can talk about your home. And if you did that in between a bunch of value add ones and promoting other businesses and stuff, I think you could totally do that. So then your podcast isn't just about me and my listings. It's really about, it's more about the community. It's more about the sellers. It's more about providing more value. And people love talking about their stuff themselves. So if you're helping them do that and making an extra effort to feel like you're doing something extra to promote their home, I mean, they'll talk about
and and the mayor is another good person, right? He'd love to be on and talk about what's happening in the city, the town, the county, all that sort of stuff. And there might be other people at City Hall that he could recommend that you talk to too, right?
And I just had an agent who's one of the members of my Pro membership, and she just went to the local Chamber of Commerce, and she had an event where she met I think it's called the Holistic Business Owners or something. So it was this really great group of forward-thinking business owners who care about the environment, sustainability, and have some sort of healthy home element in there. And they wanted her to talk about wellness real estate. So she did. And she had 20 people come up after her to learn more and talk about it. So she just had 20 other business people that want to learn about her. And if she had a podcast, she could then have each of those people on her podcast in the local community. And they would all feel like, wow, now I need to promote this realtor. She's my realtor I need to talk about. So
that's exactly right.
It just gives you so much more. I mean, I feel like, especially when you're new, but even if have been a seasoned agent for a long time, but you're based only on referrals and you don't feel like you have consistent leads that come in, starting a podcast can just be a great way to have something to talk about, feel like you're still working, and consistently casting your wider net, like you just said.
Right. And you actually, as you were talking, you reminded me of insurance agents, right? Like, I feel like the only reason an insurance agent wants to go for coffee with me is to sell me a policy. Right. And so some people may feel, well, the only reason you want to have coffee with me is to sell me a house or sell my house. Right. And so how do you get around that? Right. There's no way around that normally, because that's your job and they know. Right. And your job is to look for houses to sell and people to buy them. But when you say, I want you on my podcast, it scoots around that whole like, oh, I don't know, is this gonna be a waste of time, or I don't want to feel like being sold and all the rest, because now it's about them. It's not about you, so to speak, right? You, the podcast.
Exactly. Well, and I think if you are talking about your niche a little bit when you discuss with them, or even if they, people are going to go check out your podcast, they're going to see what you're talking about. If you have that recorded intro and intro, like where you talk about what your niche is or something, it's going to help kind of really not only position you as the expert, but just kind of solidify that you are the expert for that area in
Right.
whatever niche you have. And they're going to realize that not every agent is the same, right? And I think a lot of people think, oh, every agent's the same, so I'll just pick the one that sells the most in my neighborhood. But if you have if you're looking for a house that's in a gated community, let's just say, there are people that know all the gated neighborhoods in that community. So if you were that agent, you should talk about that, because if you know every single gated neighborhood, all the the best features of everything. If I was a person looking to live in a gated neighborhood, wouldn't I prefer to talk to somebody who knows about all of that rather than just somebody who knows the general area? Or
Right.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, this is so wonderful. So I know that you have a whole course. If someone's interested, they want to learn how to build their podcast and what to talk about, and kind of, you go a lot more in depth about that.
Yes, I did a course. I have over 120 courses on a site called udemy.com. And some of them are on podcasting and some of them are on topics I don't know anything about because I work as a producer on those ones. But Michael Oden is a podcaster and a realtor who's been very successful using his podcast. And so he and I got together and we put together a course called Realtor Podcast Marketing for Real Estate Agent Success. And I gave Sheila, it's about a $200 course, but I gave Sheila a coupon. It's only good for the next 5 days. Unfortunately, it's a Udemy thing, not a Scott thing. I would have it for everybody forever, but Udemy often has sales. So if you miss this coupon, just keep checking until you like the price. Okay. But it has 10,000 happy students and a 4.5 star rating out of 5 stars. So people that have taken it have really enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. And it'll give you access to me too. You can ask questions and I'm in there often and I'll answer them and help you as best I can.
Yeah, and that's how I found you. And it was great because I actually thought, gosh, this was such a great idea. So I just started researching, is there a podcasting course? Because I need to talk about it somehow, but I didn't feel like I was necessarily the expert yet. But I thought, it's such a great opportunity. And then I found your course and so I bought it and I thought, oh my gosh, this is so wonderful. I need to have you on the podcast. So
thank you so much for inviting me. It's been fun.
Yeah, well, thank you again. Oh, and then you know what? We got to talk about your business too. Let's, you were just sharing, what is the name of your business again?
Global Digital Media.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about how you help agents with global digital media.
I have a few personal clients and they are real estate investors and they train other real estate investors as well. And so all of these people have no time. They know that they need to post on social media. They know they need to create content. They know they need to look after their books, but they just don't have the time. And I know how frustrating it can be trying to find the right person. And I met a lady in the Philippines. Her name is Trixie. And the way that I met her was she ended up taking over my business. She said, Scott, you're working too hard. And I said, yeah, I know, but who can do this? And she said, oh, I know 2 guys that can. And we had these meetings and they did the work really well. And then we had more meetings. And then I realized after about a month and a half that she was actually running my business. So maybe I should formalize that relationship. Yeah. And her superpower is finding the right person, personality-wise, that would fit with you, and also is a good worker and competent at what they're doing. And one of the things that happened with the COVID and the lockdown and everything was a lot of American and Chinese companies didn't close down, they laid off all their Filipino workers, which gave us a pool of experienced people to pull from. And it's getting a little more difficult because it's sort of ramping up again, and they're trying to hire them back. But we still have, we have the experience of being able to go into the community, find the right people for the real estate, whether it's a realtor or a real estate investor. And then, so what the process is, we sit down, we say, like, what do you want done? What do you need done? We make a list. Usually the list is too long because you have to crawl before you can sprint, sort of thing, right? So we say, here's our plan: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And also we also want to minimize the risk, because you're trusting us to be able to find somebody that can do the work right. And so if you had 10 people working for you tomorrow, that's just overwhelming. So we get one person on, we do one set of tasks. You're able to watch and see and make sure that that works right, that they're doing the work right. And also we need to learn from you how you want things done, right? What is your standards? What's the quality that you like? And because everybody's different in terms of that sort of thing. And then, whether it's social media posting, whether it's finding houses that people want to sell, or finding people that want to buy, or posting on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or whatever, we put together the plan and work the plan so that it works out good. And we have about 17 to 20 people now. That's pretty much all they do, is find tenants, find buyers, find houses, find condos, depending on what. And of course, that always changes, right? Like, oh, I've got 3 empty condos I need to sell or rent, depending on what you're doing. And then you do that, and it's, well, now I need to buy more.
So they're doing that across the country.
Yes.
Wow. So what if you're the agent that doesn't have consistent revenue coming in, and you're worried that you can't afford to have help?
Well, we try to work within your budget. And we also, our goal, to be quite honest, is to take over 80% of your business.
Wow.
The 80-20 rule, right? We figure you're wasting your time on 80% of the stuff that you're doing, and we can do it. So, but that requires growth and, getting things to work. So some people might want to, have 5 hours a week. Some people might want 40 hours a week. It all depends. We don't recommend starting at 40. We recommend, 10 to 20 hours, because there's a learning process, particularly in the beginning. And then as you trust your virtual assistant and your remote staff more and more, you'll give them more and more to do.
Right. Well, and how much, I know that it's way more affordable to have Filipino virtual assistants than it is to hire virtual assistants in the US. How affordable is it? Is there a range?
We bill out on an hourly rate, and depending on the work. So some things are more niched, more you require more training, that sort of thing. But it's between $11 and $15 an hour.
Okay, so that's super affordable.
Yes, we want to make it. And this is changing lives in the Philippines, right? Like, these people are able to, fix up places for their parents, and they're able to do things that they wouldn't be able to do. And then, of course, the community also benefits from the spin-off effects and everything else. So you're able to change lives halfway around the world, and they're able to be of service, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah, well, and it's because of the exchange rate or something too. So I remember thinking, gosh, it's not very much to be paying them for all this work, but it's because the exchange rate is different, and they're what they normally are getting paid is so much less than what Americans are.
We go to McDonald's and buy a Big Mac and it's $50. They go to McDonald's, buy a Big Mac, and it's 50 cents. So, and I'm totally exaggerating everything in that statement, but their cost of living is far different than ours. And that arbitrage that happens is what makes it work, right? And we have a system for, one of the big problems with this type of worker is you can't see them work, right? Because they're halfway around the world. The beauty of it, by the way, is that at 5 o'clock at night, when you're done, you go, oh, gee, I would really like to know that, because they'll do research for you, for example. I would really like to know this. And you send them a little note. And in the morning when you wake up, there's an email and you've got your answer. And it's like, oh, I would go to bed and my videos were not edited. and I'd wake up in the morning and they were all edited and uploaded.
Yeah.
I was like, yay,
Yay.
I work in my sleep. So
That's wonderful.
yeah, so we have a system where we watch very closely. We meet with everybody all the time. We try to make sure if there's any problems, we find out early enough that we can work through them and figure them out, because they may be thinking they're doing the right thing, but they're not. And so it's not like we find them and say, here's your person and see you later. We're meeting with them on usually in the first little while every week. And then after we know that they're doing good, it's every month.
Yeah.
And then as a group, we meet once a month. And if there are specialty groups, like we've got one client who has members, and he's got like 15 members that we have remote staff working for. So we have them all meet because they're all doing the same type of work. So it becomes a mastermind. Like, oh, I did this for Joe and it really worked out well. Okay, well, let's tell everybody else. Maybe they want to do the same thing too, right? So we're very proactive in the things that they do, because we really want to grow your business and get your trust and take over 80%. So you can be sitting on the beach if you like Mai Tai or whatever, and know that all this stuff that you need done is being done.
Yeah, like for example, the podcast. If you record a podcast, then you don't have to necessarily edit it and upload it and come up with the social media that goes with it and post it in 5 different places.
Exactly.
That stuff can be automated. You just build the relationships and make the recording and everybody's happy. And then you've got all this great content that you can share in lots of different places. That's awesome.
That's right. And it makes a huge difference when you have someone on your podcast and a week or so later, they get an email and here are some quote images of you. And here's the link to like with my clients, I do a live stream, which we then take the audio out and then we take a transcription, right? So we give our guests a link to the video, a link to the iTunes, Apple Podcasts now, and a bunch of images. And then there's like, oh, wow, I got all this stuff. And then they give it to their staff usually, and then they post it all up and everybody's happy, right? So, and then they remember you, right? It's like, as opposed to, well, I spent 20 minutes with Sheila and never heard from her ever again. Yeah. You kind of got this follow-up going on.
Yeah. No, it's great. Well, thank you so much, Scott. It was such a pleasure talking to you, and I appreciate you so much being on my podcast.
Thank you, Sheila. I can't wait to get the link.
Yes, and for the last part, how do people get a hold of you? Do you have a website?
Or just globaldigitalmedia.vip.
Okay.
Instead of com, it's VIP, because we decided we wanted to we're a boutique service and we wanted to give VIP service. So I kind of liked that extension when it was there.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you learned something new that will inspire you to think about your branding and how you can market yourself a little differently. If you enjoyed this episode, then you're going to love what I have for you, because you don't need to wait to go get extra certifications or to grow and expand your network to get started attracting those new leads right now. You can simply begin by talking about wellness real estate trends and what you've learned on this podcast with others. I mean, this is pretty interesting stuff that no one has heard about, and I have all the tools that can make it even easier for you. Wellness Real Estate Magazine is a brand new wellness lifestyle magazine, and it's the only magazine that brings health and home together. We educate readers on industry trends and how to create a healthier home environment, written by industry experts around the country. And we have 3 covers to choose from: Wellness RE, Healthy Home, and Wellness at Home, so you can easily find one that aligns with your unique brand and messaging. These magazines are the perfect done-for-you tools that help you not only stay top of mind, but they educate and engage your audience, which positions you as an industry expert. Differentiate yourself and grow your brand the easy way. Learn more at healthyhomemedia.com.